This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We are thrilled today to be joined by three leaders from Beaconhouse Capital Management. And then they're going to talk about sort of what they do, how they do it, and sort of where their theses are and trends they're watching. Brilliant, brilliant leaders. We've got Saquib Toor, we've got Dr. Nasir Siddiqui, and we've got Chris Nyren with us. Saquib, I'm going to ask you to take the lead in introducing yourself. Then I'll ask Dr. Siddiqui to do so and Chris Nyren to do so. Saquib, can you take a second and introduce yourself?
Sure. First, thanks for having me and our team. So I'm the founder of Beaconhouse Capital. I started my career more than 20 years ago in Wall Street. I was formerly at Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette in Los Angeles. The first deals I worked on included actually Donald Trump and his Atlantic City properties. Thereafter, I became an investor at two private equity funds and a hedge fund, so Centerbridge Partners, as well as D.E. Shaw in New York City, and then launched Beaconhouse in 2018. Since we launched, we have completed 5 transactions, all corporate buyouts, corporate carve-outs, or they were some sort of restructuring transactions, relatively complicated, stressful type deals. And we've exited one of them to date, and we're still building the others that we have in our portfolio. So it's been super exciting. And over the years, I've added additional personnel that's really helped me on the industry knowledge side, and that's where Nasir and Chris have really been instrumental, especially in the last couple of transactions. So it's been super amazing couple of years, and we're excited to grow Beaconhouse, and we're out there raising additional capital. So we're working with current or former family business owners or owner operators to partner with us to continue our growth.
Fantastic. Talk for a moment about when you worked on a deal with a Trump deal early on in your career. At that point, what did you see there that led you to believe that he'd have much bigger success or potentially get into the political limelight, or was it too early to tell any of that?
It was, I wouldn't say it was too early to tell, but what was really interesting about early in my career was that I worked with a pretty illustrious group of investment bankers that focused on buyouts. And we were banking the largest buyout professionals in the industry, including, the TPG Capital, Apollo, Carlyle, Donald Trump, a lot of the Raiders at that time. And it just really opened my eyes in terms of, how individuals can leverage their relationships, leverage capital, to really make change in organizations and businesses. And so working with the team there, specifically in the group that oversaw the buyout groups, which was really led by Ken Moelis, that triggered my interest in private equity. And I joined a firm called Joseph Littlejohn Levy in 2002 in New York, and I was the only analyst there. And we were focused solely on corporate restructurings and buyouts of carve-outs. And I found that super challenging in the sense that you had to work across organizations, capital structures, lenders to make things work. And not a lot of people have that talent to kind of cross those bridges. And I found that particularly interesting. And I felt that those types of skill sets were not really evident in the lower middle market space. And that's what really pushed me to start Beaconhouse and to focus on those transactions that would otherwise likely turn into liquidations, and to breathe almost a second life into these businesses that requires a little bit of like smarts, a little bit of capital, and a lot of vision. And that's kind of what we've been doing for the last several years in these carve-outs and restructuring transactions where we take control of these businesses.
Literally fascinating. And you're back in the day then of the Leon Blacks of the world, the Ken Moelises of the world, the Bill Farleys of the world, when they were front and center in that world, and just absolutely fascinating, that buyout world, not to mention so many others, some of which are still quite active today. Oh, that's fascinating. Absolutely. Dr. Siddiqui, you've had this fantastic career as a leader in healthcare. take a moment and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Nasir Siddiqui. I've taken on various leadership roles in healthcare, from medical directorships to chairmanships within radiology. And my partnership with Beacon House, what I really kind of enjoy about what we're doing is, we're not just acquiring businesses and looking to take out costs, but we're looking to rebuild, reposition, and prepare for long-term success and value. I think what we're seeing is, the 800-pound gorilla within everything is AI right now. And for me on the healthcare side, I've seen how AI is kind of transformed operational efficiency and improved patient outcomes. What we're interested in is how to utilize that not only on the healthcare side, but also education and in content delivery to make that make that more accessible to our individual users, our physicians who use our products.
Thank you. And take a second just to give people some light on your day job and what you do as a physician leader.
So currently, I am the chair of radiology at Dooley Health and Care, which is a multi-specialty practice in the western suburbs of Chicago. We are predominantly Western Chicago, but also have gone across state lines into Indiana as well as Central Illinois.
Fantastic. And Chris, you're the founder of Educated Ventures. You're a Wharton grad. You've also worked all over the world. Talk a little bit about yourself and tell people a little bit about your background and what you've done.
Yeah, I think what's unique about our team is we're all about 25 years into our career. We've all known each other for at least that long. I started my career at DLJ as well, different office in Saquib, but certainly was aware of him in LA with the other corporate swashbucklers. Went to Wharton with Saquib, specifically asked him if he'd be my roommate. So we've been close, and but I've tended to focus on education and services business in my investing career back at Apollo, middle market fund, also then one of the first ed tech VCs, and for the past decade through my own account. And I think what brought us here together, specifically maybe around this podcast and a lot of what we're building at Beaconhouse, was an opportunity I sourced that actually kind of married all three of our experiences and skill sets. Learner's Digest. It was a corporate carve out from Wolters Kluwer, continuing medical education business. So it was a nice chance to take my education experience on the deal side as well as previously in operations, obviously Nasir's healthcare and medical expertise, and then Saquib, the ultimate deal structure and getting this over the finish line. So we're quite excited about that deal. That was a business that 10 years ago was a $150 million acquisition by Wolters Kluwer that had become non-core. And, obviously Wolters Kluwer, $40 billion publicly traded global business. But we were able to close that just this fall and are now several months in to creating some real value.
Fantastic. And take a second. Well, I want to bring you back for a second. From my generation, and I'm older than all of you guys, it's a little embarrassing. I hate to say it out loud, but DLJ was a household name back in the day. And you mentioned the swashbuckling. Take a moment, Chris, on the history of DLJ, if you don't mind, for one moment, sort of the past and because that was one of the great names in corporate finance back in the day.
Yeah, it was, and obviously you had sort of the twin sort of centers between New York and then Ken Mullis and a lot of the former Drexel team in LA. But it was a phenomenal experience to cut teeth. I was working with technology and services companies. Then once we were acquired by Credit Suisse, that was certainly the purview of Frank Quattrone. And but at that point, I was tapped on the shoulder and redirected to an education coverage team at Credit Suisse, not even knowing that was a sector. So that was, 2000 now. The last 25 years, a lot of my experience has been really centered around education. It's been fascinating to watch that industry seem to develop. We still, 25 years later, only have one handful of publicly traded companies, but certainly within the private markets, a lot of exciting new platforms being built, and excited that we're working on one of those right now.
You're fantastic. And Saquib, maybe you could take the lead in talking about Learning Digest and what you're excited about there and what you see there. Then I'll ask Chris, who's sourced it, is integral to it, leading it, I think, where he sees it, and Dr. Siddiqui. Give us a couple of thoughts on Learning Digest.
No, absolutely. So with Learner's Digest, as Chris mentioned, it was a $150 million acquisition completed by Walter Kluwer less than 8-9 years ago. But what we found here was that it is a leader in its business, in its core, in providing online continuing medical education. Has an amazing management team that's been around for 25 plus years. The brand has been around since the 1950s, and it's got a lot of recognition by physicians. And we saw this as an asset under its current ownership that was non-core. There was not enough of leadership or focus in terms of what they want to be when they grow up. And we saw an opportunity where, myself on the transactional side, Chris really on the strategy side, and Nasir on the medical side to really change this business post-acquisition. And since the acquisition, we've made it leaner, more focused. We've grown revenues when under the former ownership, they had declining revenues for many years. And we see a huge opportunity to use this as a platform going forward for additional acquisitions, not only in CME, but also in complementary spaces, and also where we can leverage our collective knowledge in AI to make this more efficient, as well as helping doctors provide better care.
Yeah, Scott, and I'll jump in as well. I mean, I think, it's a business that we really believe in. And from a physician standpoint, continued medical education is key to what we do. And what we've seen is, there's a lot of friction to get that education. And what we see with Learner's Digest and, one of our products, Audio Digest, is how do we remove that impedance to allow for continued medical education to be easy and accessible to the physicians.
Thank you very, very much. And Chris, when you look at this, what are you most excited about this coming year? What are you most focused on and excited about?
For this business, I think we've already rapidly worked to ensure even healthier operating margins, and just got through our most busy season, end of year, when a lot of doctors realize maybe they don't have their CME credits on tap. But now I think it's really using this as a platform for growth. We've got a couple acquisitions that we're under discussion with, including one that was a former investment client of mine. So I think, just having 20 years of work in the professional education space, we kind of came to it already with a pipeline of additive education, healthcare, medical education assets. So I think to me that's most exciting to see how we can grow through acquisition, whether that's adding more AI capabilities or pushing more into B2B sales, selling directly to hospitals rather than online to doctors. There's no shortage, including other specialties, pushing deeper into nursing. So that's definitely what has me most to focus on this year.
It's really kind of, Scott, it's really kind of building the business out and looking at, horizontals that are adjacent. Chris touches on, nurse practitioners. I mean, there's a tremendous issue with access within the U.S. healthcare system and the reliance on nurse practitioners, PAs to provide support as physician extenders, and how can we provide educational content to kind of fulfill their needs.
Just fantastic. And talk about sort of, you each have had these fantastic entrepreneurial and investment and professional careers. Any advice that you would give to emerging entrepreneurs, emerging leaders of companies? Saquib, let me start with you. Any advice to, emerging investors and founders? Any thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, it depends how we define emerging, but I started investing when I was 11 years old. And I remember the first stock I bought was Topps baseball cards. After trading for years at the local baseball card shop, my rookie cards. So I bought that at 6 7/8, held it for a number of years, but that really sparked my interest in investing. And I would just say, And ever since then, like every day, the first thing I do is check on the markets every morning. So that's been, for the last 35 years. But I would say like really develop a niche, identify your passion early on, and just relentlessly pursue it. And I think that's why I tell my kids, just focus on what you're really good at and just keep on trying and just stick with it.
And a question there is an avid investor, Saquib, is it too late to take a shot at putting some money, not your core portfolio, in Apple and NVIDIA and so forth? Is it too late to do that? Or do you keep on dollar averaging into those companies? What is your quick take, or do you have a quick take on that?
The quick take there is I'm a big proponent of, it's hard to time the market. So doing your dollar cost averaging on a periodic basis is a very good idea.
Index funds versus big names.
Index funds.
Thank you. Dr. Siddiqui, you've had this fantastic career that bridges medicine, investing, business. What advice for emerging leaders and people that want to enjoy their careers and thrive like you have?
Yeah, no, I agree with Saquib. It's really kind of knowing your niche, and I think stay open to learning. A lot of what I've done has been through being adaptable and embrace the challenges as opportunities to grow and refine your leadership style.
Chris, your advice for emerging leaders, founders, investors.
Yeah, I'm gonna. It's gonna be a repeat here, but maybe double clicking on that niche approach. I think in particular marrying, in my case, vertical market expertise with then some kind of horizontal. I think with Saquib's career, it's certainly been distressed, corporate carve-outs. I think it's not a coincidence. More than one of the other portfolio companies at the fund are in the plastic space. So, I think with myself, having a keen focus on education services and then a very specific deal type. Look, that absolutely, even if you're doing that from a relatively young point in your career, it can be limiting. It narrows down the kind of divergent paths off a decision tree. But what ultimately happens if you prove yourself is that you don't need all those branches because the market comes to you. You don't have to market yourself. Everyone knows you because you've married a specific vertical niche with a specific horizontal functional niche.
The question for you, I ask the same question: Apple, NVIDIA, or index funds for the part of your portfolio that may be more the core portfolio outside of the privately held stuff that you guys have? Apple, NVIDIA, or index funds?
Oh, wow. For me, at this point in my portfolio, it would probably be NVIDIA. I've got plenty of index funds, and I think I'm especially particularly with the new announcements around pushing into more AI robotics that seems to be opening up a whole new addressable market for them.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. Again, Saquib, Dr. Siddiqui, Chris, what a great pleasure to visit with you and learn more about Beaconhouse Capital and also about Learner's Digest. Tell me, do I got the name Learner's Digest correct?
Correct.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us. We'll get this podcast out early next week, but what a pleasure to visit with the three of you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.